Pleased to meet you. As you can see, it was not organized. We had just breakfast this morning with Fabio, so maybe what I propose is we introduce ourselves quickly before starting. You can introduce yourself.
I came from the beverage company, the company Suntory beverage company in Shanghai.
Fabio?
Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Fabio Vacirca. I'm Italian by origin, based in Singapore, and I run the products business for Accenture in Asia Pacific. But relevant to this audience, I spent my previous 24 years in business, all in consumer goods. I was 1 year in Procter & Gamble, and then joined Accenture and served consumer goods companies for all my career. My previous job was to run the consumer goods industry for Accenture globally.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Laurent CARDINALI, I'm part of Mondelēz, like Stefan. I joined Mondelēz 2 years ago. I've been working now almost 30 years, mainly in the supply chain and more specifically in the engineering. I'm leading actually the engineering community for Mondelēz globally. Before that, I spent many years in oil and gas, refining, heavy chemicals, fine chemicals, chem specialties, pharmaceutical business for several years. So I have a kind of wide spectrum of experience in the different businesses. And before Mondelēz, I worked 5 years for Danone, which was the first consumer goods FMCG company I was working. So thanks for the introduction. The topic of this discussion this morning is around digital transformation. And the two questions we have is what are the challenges we are facing or we will face regarding digital transformation, and what are the opportunities this digital transformation can bring to our businesses. It was interesting to have ABB discussing before. It was Industry 4.0. It was a great introduction. So how can digital transformation drastically revolutionize our end-to-end supply chain, which is really from the consumer down to the rows and packs, so the whole value chain? This is the question. So I don't know if you want to start with an introduction about the challenges or benefits, as you want.
Okay, so thank you, Laurent. Let me tackle the questions starting from the consumer end. Then maybe we use your experience more later in the supply chain side and manufacturing side. So I think, I mean, everyone heard multiple times, and every consultant, every magazine, every player in the industry is clearly saying that the digital transformation is changing the game in consumer goods. I'm not going to repeat or drain this argument, but I mean, the way marketing is done, the way sales will be done, the way consumer engagement will be done in the future is different. It's different already today, it's not the future. As I was a Procter & Gamble employee, and the first day when you joined Procter, you had the marketing training, and they were teaching you the moments of truth. The one when you do the advertising, the one when you do the trade marketing, and the one when the consumer is using your product. Well, this paradigm is not anymore the case in the digital world. Now, as I said, I don't want to drain the change, which is today, but I would like to spend a few moments on the challenges, or if you want, the potential pitfalls for CPG and specifically in China. When I was in my previous job, I observed that there is an interesting delay of the sector in following what the consumers are doing quite quickly. I mean, normally companies want to be ahead of the curve, anticipate the needs, understand how the market is moving. Interestingly, in the move to digital, the entire FMCG sector has been moving slower than the consumer itself. I mean, I try to understand why this is happening. There are multiple answers. The one I like and normally I agree with more is the one that says there is the entire marketing ecosystem that we all grew up with. It starts from the media players down to the agencies, down to the brand managers, which is so tight to the traditional media paradigm that is resistant to change. So that's one way to look at it. Nevertheless, the fact is that us, as consumer goods player, we are moving slower than the market in catching the digital wave. What do I mean with that? The advertising is still overweighted in the traditional world if I compare the share of spend with the share of attention of the consumers. And there is no logical answer no logical reason for this. When I look to the channels, and I like what Stephen presented, the channels are digitizing themselves very quickly. And they may also be disrupted by an Alibaba coming and becoming the distributor for tier 4 and rural, but also tier 3 potentially. So in all these things, I think as a sector, we are lagging behind. Now, last bit on China. In all this transformation, China is the only place in the world where the scale is already significant. I mean, volumes, we saw in the opening, volumes on e-commerce in China are already double-digit, moving between 10 and 20. In the rest of the world, they are more in the 5 to 6. Now, there is scale, and the uniqueness of China is the fact that the players here are the unique players to China. So this is the only place in the world where we don't believe that eBay, Alibaba, eBay and Amazon will dictate the rule, and it will be more the BAT plus JD.com that will set the scene. So I think China to some extent is a challenge, but it's also probably a unique place where scale, speed and uniqueness will make this the place where this kind of change can be defined, defined as a model for the entire global companies. So something going from China to headquarters, if we think multinational.
Anything you would like to say?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And, actually, my most experience is the contact with the consumer, with the sales agent. But still think of the manufacturing technology. Just a few days ago, one of my friend, he's a policeman. He got a good reward because he quickly solved the case and get to the many cases. I asked why you get so achievement. He said, oh, it's easy because there are so many video camera. Because the internet, I can get the DNA and so on. So think of that police, what he said. Today we think of IoT. That's the Internet of Things. That's actually, maybe I remember right or not, it's 25 years ago, the Aston raised up the IoT idea. In that time, no many people to attend that. Today, after 25 years later, we have such a meeting, we talk about that. What's the IoT? As my thinking is that we need, through the internet, through the information technology, to link the sensor, controller, machine, people, and even the products, you have semi-products. So, a few minutes ago, I asked a question to the Marcus, how about the reality, virtual reality? Because a few days ago, Alibaba, they will get a new e-commerce phase. That's the virtual reality. That means now give more challenge to the physical store because currently we place the order in the mobile phone or PC. But in the later future, the people will be look at every things they want or they think of that through virtual reality. Just the one glass together with the mobile phone, they do everything. So one question is, what the world today it is? I think the world today is my mobile phone in my hand, because most of my daily life things, even my work things, we can do through the mobile phone. So that's the really challenge for all of our manufacturing or supply chain issues.
Okay. Well, I remember a discussion I had 2 weeks ago with some friends working in the cosmetic industry. It's L'Oréal, actually. And looking at the future, the challenge they have is that they think that more and more they will need to manufacture or produce product very personalized to their consumers. So you can imagine having a woman testing his skin with a sensor, and this will determine the type of skin she has, and depending on that, she will receive at home the cream customized really for her need and her skin. So can you imagine the complexity, end-to-end supply chain to be able to arrive at this stage? And that's where we will go. That's the evolution. So it means really a revolution in our whole supply chain, end-to-end, to be able to answer to those consumer needs or expectations. And this will come more quickly as we can imagine.
I think you are definitely right. We had the conversation this morning at breakfast. I think the pharma industry, with all the DNA-based drugs, they are already in the kind of make-to-order. So imagine, even if you forget about all the changes that digital can bring in the supply chain and manufacturing operation, and we just focus on the way goods will be purchased or goods will be selected on the consumer side. So the one trend is definitely the one you are pointing out, which is there is a clear visibility of people going and pretending to have more customization. Now, in the consumer goods, probably we will go in a one-to-many or one-to-few zone, not the one-to-one. But there is also a second one, which is, I mean, I'm the front office guy. I would like to hear your view. 1 year ago, I was sitting at the Consumer Goods Forum in Paris, almost 2 years ago. And there was the head of strategy of Amazon who was speaking to the community, and the audience was made half of retailers and half of consumer packaged goods manufacturers. And this gentleman was kind of a disruptive speaking. He was a little bit aggressive. And when he was addressing the consumer goods side of the audience, he said, and you need to start thinking that we don't want nice packages. We want packages that fit well in a box and can utilize the space properly. And then give me an appealing picture. That's all what I need. So if you think about the implication of volumes moving to online, and you said, Stephen, in your presentation, don't use the same SKU or the same pack size or the same flavor because online needs something different. Think about the packaging. The day online gets into the everyday's behavior, then I don't care of the package because I know what I'm buying, for example. So I think I wanted to hear the implication.
What you mentioned, the packaging is the design or packaging material?
Well, what this gentleman was saying is don't make all these fancy packages because when we build the Amazon box, this is just a disruption in my process. If I have boxes in a standard size like containers, for example, I will optimize my logistics and my cost of distribution will go down. And anyway, the reason why today you have fancy packages is because you want to attract the attention of a shopper on a shelf, not really for the consumption, right?
So as you can see, if we want to move, all FMCGs want to move forward with this digital revolution, it implies a lot of challenges. So in Mondelēz, for instance, we have been starting a journey 2 years ago. We call that the integrated digital factory. And it's all about having a digital supply chain end-to-end. And we are facing many challenges. The first challenges we are facing is the security of the information. Everything is going in the cloud. What about who can have access to the cloud? Are the information really protected? It's not that we have sensitive information in the FMCG business, but it's just competitive intelligence that we wouldn't like our competitors to have access to. So we have started first to implement what we call EMS, which is energy monitoring systems. And we have started that in some of our factories, and now we are rolling this out globally. And this is a success. But we had to face internally some resistance, I would say especially from our IS/IT departments, and regarding firewalls to be installed in the factory, etc. So it has been complex, but we are moving forward. The next step is about having the full supply chain being digitalized. We have started this also, but here again we are facing some technology issues, lack of standardization, and for me, it shouldn't be a barrier. I think we have to continue to move forward, and the investment is worth doing it. The payback should be okay. And anyway, we will have to do it if we want to, later in the future, stick to our consumer needs, as we said, and more personalized. If you look at the last 5 years, the trend was to invest in huge, large greenfield or brownfield factories. So your intent was to have high throughput lines with a very high efficiency, high performance, but this was with a very standard product, nothing personalized. I think the trend now will be completely different. We will want to have a very flexible supply chain, a very flexible manufacturing, to be able to do late differentiation in our manufacturing process in order to adapt to our consumers. So that's the challenge I see. So do you have any comment on this security stuff?
I would like to maybe ask you what the beverage industry would do to react to these two challenges that we said. So either the customization or the different need in terms of maybe packaging or maybe supply chain overall.
That is to think about from the consumer side. As the early morning we talked, in China we really experienced the different supply area. In 1992, that's the short supply. Anything, if you produce, you can see in the store, and you can sort out. But after that, based on the better and better supply for any goods, especially also for consumer goods, the consumer also changed. We normally call it 70, 80, but now the 70, 80 already is too old. We call it 90, even 2010. That means recent 15 to 25 years. This generation is really main consumer groups. As we said, this will be the middle class. What they thinking, what they are favorable, or we must think of their predictions. That's our digital or manufacturing or innovation. We should think of that. If we really understanding of that, we will catch them aspect. We will really get them.
Well, maybe a comment on China specifically. I think, as I said before, China has the scale and has the uniqueness to be the place where the digital, the way consumer goods companies will deal with digital will be set. I truly believe this. And I think we are now trying to find what does it mean for companies in the FMCG space to be ahead of the curve. Stephen, again, I keep referring, he projected this chart with a curve topping up to a plateau at a certain point. I think this, and you said it rightly, the plateau is coming when you stop growing just because you add more distributors or more mom and pop shops. I think the plateau means also that you are moving from a net new consumers to a market share competition space. Now, the decline, which may be experienced by some, is indeed the move of the shopping of the shoppers outside of the traditional channels and going into the new channels, which are now in the range of 15–20%, so they can really hurt, and they normally tackle the top part of the spending. This morning in the kickoff, I think we had a couple of examples mentioned. The Nespresso one was on the chart. And what Nespresso did to the market in the countries where they developed the model is that they pretty much have taken out the entire upper part of the consumption, the richer part. Now, this can happen in many other categories. It's happening in beer, can happen in the spirits. So the point I would like to make is China, I think, will be ahead of the curve. It is already ahead of the curve, and if we don't move as a sector, I mean, someone may come to the sector first of all, and of course, if there is a disruption, then there will be winners and losers. So I think this is a space where competition will be a little bit rougher than the rest of the world, which is moving at a lower speed, if you want.
And I think I'm personally convinced that on the market we have all the technologies ready for this digital revolution, because I think the level of maturity of the technologies is already here. The question for the FMCGs, or the doubt, is when should I invest in those technologies? Is it worth doing it? What payback shall I have? Is it short term? Is it long term? So, but I think that definitely we have not to think too much, and we have to do it. And that's what we have started to do in Mondelēz, actually. Do you agree with this?
Well, absolutely. The entire digital revolution, I don't think it's a technology play. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's not a technology play. It's a change in the fundamental way consumer packaged goods will go to market, will do marketing, will do supply chain, will do manufacturing. Normally we don't need to be bleeding edge, because some other sectors may do it for us. I mean, banks will be leading edge on security, communication companies will be bleeding edge on bandwidth and mobile communication. Device technologies will be brought because of the big companies selling the devices to the consumers. So, I mean, other sectors will drive the technology innovation. Consumers will just need to realize, consumer packaged goods companies will need to realize that the change is there, and we will need to think as a sector to what are the implications. And the implication is in the basic stuff we do. So what assortment, what pricing, what promotions, how we do promotions and assortment and pricing in a different channel. Do we do it one-on-one? Do we do one-to-many as we grew up with? How we do the advertising, how we cope with the fact that the moments of truth, they were quite separated in the past, and now they are one click away, each from the other. Or back to the supply chain and manufacturing. What does it mean for my supply chain if I have a digital channel which works to optimize a box instead of a shelf? Or how do I work in my manufacturing line if my marketeers invented a cosmetics that is specific to a small segment of consumers? So, I mean, these are the things. So, back to your original question, I don't think the game is a technology game. Technology is there, we just need to understand which one to adopt and do it wisely. It's about changing the fundamentals of our business every day.
the normal, the marketer in a company, normally the key factor, key aspect, the key department for companies, they, based on the manufacturing in the traditional way, think of the cost, think of the price, think of the quality. But now we must more and more link with the marketer to think of how we can really get into the, more into the digital or the interactions business, the intellectual technology with the consumers.
Okay, unless you have other topics, Fabio or Fenchee, I don't know, maybe as it is a panel, we would like it to be interactive. I propose that we have 19 minutes remaining. Maybe ask to the audience if you have any questions. Yes? There is one there. Here, mic is coming.
As a consumer who actually buy a lot of stuff from e-commerce, actually, let me confirm to you that packaging is actually very important to consumers, okay, as a shopping experience. But maybe what can be improved is that the strongness of the packaging into the box, so when I get the stuff out from the box, it will not get destroyed. Okay, I'm really kind of like talking just because of sharing the experience of as consumer. We're actually talking to the retailer companies as well. So what they're actually doing is that integrating the intelligence with the machine actually. So they, instead of trying to fit in your products and trying to ask you to provide customized products, they actually look at the orders bill, and then they will know the dimension of every single box, and then do a quick calculation at the back end, and then use a robotic to actually fill in the box in the most proper way. So that's what they're actually doing right now in the market, just to share experience to facilitate discussion.
I think once you switch your mind in a world where your moments of truth are all digital, right? You start with the digital advertising, you have a digital order, you have a digital distribution channel, or there will be still physical goods moving, but the entire thing will be driven by digital. And then you go to the backwards, you have the picking and back to the manufacturing. I think the amount of change that you can envision, it's pretty unlimited, right? The challenge for all the sector, including the consultants, is that no one has a crystal ball. Now, will the winning model, will it be an espresso-like? So a CPG company going B2C and doing direct to consumer? Or will it be a world of the Amazon and Tmall and JD.com, so the B2C e-commerce channels? Or will it be the world of the Amazon Dash? I don't know if you saw these little devices that you can put in your washing machine, and when you finished your washing powder, you just hit the button and this triggers an order on Amazon. These are things already available. No one knows yet how this thing will evolve and which will be the winning channel. Today, I would say all of them have some penetration. So there's not a clear loser yet, to say. And when you go backwards, it means that you need to keep all the options open. So that's the challenge for a supply chain thing. So if I look the spirits market, for example, now I will mention a competitor of yours, Diageo, for example. They are wondering how the future of the bottle will be. Will we have bottles in our rack at the bar, or will we have just cartridges that are replacing a slot, and inside I have my single malt whiskey? So I mean, this again will change completely the supply chain and the robotics and the packaging and so forth. So long story short, to say, today no one has the crystal ball. Probably the winning solution is to be in all the possible combination, just to be there before the curve gets steep. But at the same time, it's logical that we cannot be in all the channels because it's very expensive, right? You cannot be in parallel doing coffee in a B2C and then do the retailing, then the modern trade, and do the distributor on the HoReCa. I mean, that's very expensive and complex. So you need to pick the battles, and that's where it's a little bit the challenge, right? So probably back to China, this is a space, provided I'm talking multinationals, provided the headquarters understand that this is a pilot market, it's a place where we can try and test more than we can do on a global scale.
Okay, any other question? Oh, there is one there.
Actually, I've got two questions. The first question is, you said that when it comes to designing the package, you need to make your packaging more convenient for the distributors or the players to warehousing or transporting. I operate a small shop online, but it still makes sense for us to have a nice-looking packaging to attract the consumers. But you talk about the convenience of packaging, which is not necessarily beautiful, but it has to be easier for transportation solution suppliers. So do you base your proposal on some solid market research reports, like market survey? That's my first question. My second question is, let's suppose there is a good product. Say I've brought with me this chrysanthemum tea, which helps to improve eyesight, and I'm one of the sponsors of today's forum. Well, this product is known to have therapeutic benefits. It is a traditional Chinese solution to better eye health. But you say our life cannot be possible without mobile devices. That's why our slogan is, if you want to use your mobile phone every day, you need to drink this chrysanthemum tea. Yes, it's good to alleviate the dryness in your eyes if you watch at the phone screens for too long. But how can I communicate this message to foreign consumers if I want to sell my products to outside China? How to make the communication message relevant to global markets? How to help Chinese businesses to go global? So these are my two questions. Thank you. If I may answer your first question in Chinese. Fast-moving commercial goods sector, almost all players have an e-commerce component. We all distribute online. But the e-commerce shop differs from the physical shop layout because at the moment, consumers cannot have a first-hand feel of the products online. That means when you look at the design of the packaging, I think your top priority is to educate the consumers what kind of a product it is, what benefits or features your product have. But you cannot go against the advertisement law or regulations in China. You cannot exaggerate, per se. Second, when it comes to a new product, if you only offer it on the e-commerce channel, when it comes to the SKU size, you should make it convenient for the TP to break it down. If the packaging is too solid, it involves a very sophisticated hand tools to break it down, then TP would say no. So you need to make it possible for TP to break it down and reassemble, because it's a new product and consumers are not likely to order in a big order. Especially when you sell your product in tier 4, tier 5 cities, the roads are not very good. The transportation condition is horrible. So you have to be both strong and easy for the TPs to disassemble and reassemble. Thank you.
I just got your answer, not all the question, but I think the topic of whether we use the same SKUs or even the same brands or associated brand equity online and offline is another argument, that is another topic that doesn't have, in my mind, a visible, clear answer one way or the other. I mean, there is a school of thought that says when you go online, if you don't want to jeopardize your existing business, you better go with completely different things. You create a different brand equity, your consumer segmentation may be different because you have younger generation, and hence you create your own brand. By the way, you don't upset your retailers or your distributors. Of course, this means that you start the game by scratch, because you are giving away in some way or sense your strength or share with your strong brands. There is another school of thought that says, no, this is just another channel, and my consumers are shifting, they are becoming omni-channel, so they go from one channel to the other, and I just need to keep the consumer experience consistent. Now, as I said, there is not a right solution. Mostly companies will have to try and test. I think in China we already passed the volume where you can have completely different brands. So I think in China with an e-commerce volume which is approaching 20%, this is really a channel for you. So there's no way you can maintain really separate assortment. This will be too expensive for you. So I think in China the game is already a multi-channel game.
Thank you. Any other question? We have 5 minutes remaining. Any other question before we close?
Yeah, I have a question for the moderator and the two speakers. I'm Catherine from Delinsource, a Cisco invested corporation. And when you are talking about digitalizing the supply chain, and I'm wondering, in your opinions, what's the biggest challenge when you are digitalizing your whole supply chain, especially the global supply chain? And also, I want to know, have you already taken any measures or solutions to solve it? Am I clear?
Yep. I think so, yeah.
Well, digitalizing supply chain, I think there is always a question what digitalizing means, right? Everything is digital, you put a computer, is digital. But I mean, let's talk about the new world with the IoTs and the connected devices and the cloud and the mobility thing. So let's assume this is the moment where we talk of digital. So yes, we are, I mean, this is happening today. Every player in the supply chain is digitizing their own piece. If you think about the shipping companies, they are building smart ships. The ports are becoming smart. The entire container world is getting smart with devices and IoT. The entire warehouse. I mean, I did myself visit the Amazon warehouse in Europe, and I was amazed. I was impressed by the amount of technology that these guys have. So, I mean, the entire supply chain, if you look in pieces, is becoming heavily digital. Now, we are the ones orchestrating the end-to-end. Do I see today a player which is really managing the end-to-end with the right visibility, the right control point, the right checkpoints? The answer is no. So there is still, I think, a step to be done in order to orchestrate digitally the entire supply chain from demand back to manufacturing.
And the challenges we are facing, I think, in our industries, at least in multinational, due to the different acquisitions, at least in Mondelēz, that took place, we have a lot of legacy lines or legacy factories with legacy technologies, and it's very difficult to find a standard which fits for all. So we are working on it, but it's really tough. So that's why for some factories, the level of investment will be far higher than for others, and the payback is getting more difficult. And I think that when you're talking about payback, it needs to be done on a global level. That's where the payback is. You cannot just have a calculation just for a specific factory, because sometimes it will be 7, 8 years payback, and then the decision will be a no-go. That's not acceptable. So you need to consider the full picture, the global picture, to move forward.
李总，我刚才的问题是就是。
Mr. Lee, if I may rephrase my question, food companies are talking about digital operation, digitalizing their supply chain. So the question I asked was, as a forerunner in the food sector, what measures have you taken to support a digital operation, or to be more specific, digital transportation solution? Thank you. As I said, the majority of the players in the food industry have embraced the e-commerce. The digitization process started off 20 or 30 years ago when we had our computer. So now when we talk about digitization, I think my understanding of it is to make it more intelligent. But we need to be supported by smart tools. Steve Jobs' Apple gave a smart solution to mobile phones. But for businesses to be smarter, we need to be supported by Internet of Things, IoT. In the past 25 years, MIT, a professor from MIT raised this concept, and it was applauded by Bill Gates. But 25 years down the road, if you look at the manufacturing industry and also the whole supply chain, we've just recently embraced this concept. And it requires collaboration across all the control points. Internet of Things, by definition, is a high-stage development of our Internet-supported solutions. It informatizes the whole manufacturing process. Therefore, we need to consider the following things. First, when you set up a plant, do not choose a distant place. You need to locate your plant in the most crowded industrial park. Because by doing that, you do not need to ship your goods to a JD warehouse. So do not only consider the upfront investment cost. Second, warehouse spares and parts. For example, we do beverages business. You need to use most commonly used equipment producers' machines. And if you lack important spare parts, you can ask other companies in the same industrial park to lend you one. And once you get it, you can return it to them. Thank you. And my last question is, we've been talking about digital operation, and you are all leaders in this area. So are you truly serious about implementing a digital operation solution? What measures, concrete measures have you taken to implement digital operation? Is it a business secret? Oh, I can only represent myself. People born after 1980s and 90s are most sensitive to technological developments. So I'm a green hand when answering such questions like the one you raised.
If you run a company, you don't have to be an expert at using these latest technologies, but you must be aware of or sensitive to these digital trends. And then you will be able to lead the company, otherwise you'll fall behind.
Thank you. Thank you very much.